Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And you, man, we got a ton to talk about from the weekend, from Husker baseball to Husker women's basketball. The slap seen around the world, the most famous slap since Rick James and Charlie Murphy. My Lord. We'll talk about it once you're inputted as well. Numbers to dial up on this President's Day, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. All I have running through my head is I'm Rick James. Sorry.
Well, speaking of Rick James.
May he rest in peace. We're off the air now. Now are we okay?
We're on the air.
Okay.
But my question while we're talking about Rick James.
3 Mile Island meltdown in the hallways here.
I'll get to that in a second. But I had a dream last night.
Of Rick James?
No, similar. I had a dream that I got a perm.
Oh,
and I had the curls going up top.
Right.
And everyone loved it. And I'm trying to figure out today if that was a sign that I need to go get a perm.
I think you should just keep focusing on the mustache. If you were to get a perm, you'd look like Baba Booey, Howard Stern's infamous producer. All right?
In a good way?
No, I just think if you Google Baba Booey pictures from the mid-'80s, there it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See? I did you a favor.
I might still do it.
Whatever, man. That's Elijah Herbel talking about fashion choices for his hair. Numbers to dial up, you have those. Can find and follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And email, as always, chris@hailvarsity.com. So not a good weekend off the court for the Husker women. On the court, there is rock steady as ever. We'll get some thoughts on that. We'll dive into Husker baseball 1 and 3. Big time disappointment. You want to talk about build up? Yes, we did. And Sam Houston was ready. No panic, though, for Nebraska baseball, despite TCU looming. Coach Bolton company will go back to work. You have no doubt about that. Juwan Howard. What a embarrassing display yesterday on CBS. Will he be fined? Probably. Will he be suspended? Probably. Will he be fired? Probably not. And I think the couple of factors with that as to why he won't be terminated, and that's up to you. Do you think he should be fired for what he did? I think, yeah, because you threw punches as a head coach in a college game with a crowd of people around you. Now, he slapped an opposing assistant coach. He didn't get a player. There's your there's your technical difference between Woody Hayes and Woody, like, neck punch some dude from Clemson in the 78 Gator Bowl. And this isn't new. We'll talk to Coach McBride about this in an hour. Charlie's with us at 5:05. Steve Marik with Hail Varsity covers the Husker women basketball and, of course, Husker baseball. And then Gregg Henson will be with us, former co-worker and Michigan insider, knows the Maize and Blue real well. I want to get his take on Howard and Michigan from the Michigan perspective. But you've had instances where there's been jawing, cursing, maybe a bump, but nothing like this. And you've seen it in football way more than basketball. And listen, how many times have we heard Huskers from the 90s on the basketball court talk about the disdain for Norm Stewart and Danny Nee? It was real and it was awesome, all right? Just because Danny did well, and as a Nebraska fan growing up, that was great to see. But I remember 100 years ago with Bo MF and Grandpa Bill Snyder at midfield in 03. I remember Carl versus the cameraman down at A&M, right? Bruce Snyder was the Arizona State head coach when they upset Nebraska in 96. In 95, that was the week following the Lawrence Phillips stuff. Nebraska annihilated, I think, an Arizona State team that was pretty good, but a year away from going 11-1. But Nebraska won that thing 77-28, okay? And Nebraska opened a big old can. Clinton Childs, first play of the game, goes 70 yards, and it was on. Nebraska took out their frustration with the Lawrence Phillips stuff on Arizona State to the point where it might have been the Terminator, Matt Turman, who threw a touchdown pass to the down-under slot wideout, Brett Popplewell, who did a backflip, I believe. Either that or Lance Brown, one of the two, caught a meaningless fourth-quarter touchdown to break the 70-point barrier. And then at midfield, you had Bruce Snyder bitching and moaning that, why'd you throw it in the fourth quarter? Well, Bruce, because our guys were tired of running all day on you. But that was kept in the back pocket, no doubt used as some motivation. And quite honestly, you look at Juwan Howard, it's a situation of respect, right? Either he's insecure or the people around him are insecure because he ain't John Beilein, despite being a great with the Fab Five. Juwan's been an assistant, and he coached, and Michigan's not what they were a year ago, but he had them playing great ball last season, so it's more of a Juwan issue, and for him to lose his cool is a horrible example.
Yeah, just it's embarrassing. I think that's how you lead it off. It's embarrassing for Juwan, but it's not the most embarrassing thing in sports this weekend. That belongs to the NBA dunk contest.
Yeah, that I didn't watch. I saw enough on social media where Chuck and Shaq wanted to leave. They wanted to fake COVID or something and just get the hell out of there because that was a joke.
Yeah, was it?
Some dude put
Bill Russell left early.
Of course he did.
Bill Russell left. There's a video of him walking out of the arena in the middle of someone's dunk.
He's shaking his head. Like, what the hell's going on? Guys putting their phones around their neck to live stream and tweet out. I mean, yeah, you've swung too far on the pendulum of self-branding. We'll talk some spring football. To Husker basketball real quick. Just all around not good enough for Nebraska baseball, and they were too anxious at the plate. When you look at the fact they were I think they had 19 hits in 4 games, not a great average there. They were not able to produce enough runs clearly to help support their pitching staff. But the strikeout to walk ratio, getting on base, has been something this program's done pretty well because it's been a necessity, right? It's always important and needed to get on base, but with more of the power they have, Nebraska's approach this year is to be more extra base hit oriented. Well, 43 strikeouts compared to 10 walks, that's not a good ratio. Sunday, a chance to salvage, and it couldn't happen with 12 strikeouts to just 1 walk. Now, defensively, you commit 7 errors. That leads to 8 unearned runs. On top of the fact your starting rotation was just not good enough. 17 runs, 17 hits, only 10 1/3 innings in total by your starting pitching through 4 games. So back to the drawing board, reassess your rotation. You hope Buns is going to be okay. I don't know about that, because he's a force in the bullpen, a guy that's got some experience. And these are new moments. I'm not making excuses. I'm telling you what reality is. These are new moments for these guys that are now, they have to be the guy on the hill. And while they've maybe done it in spot duty, this is what you're going to have to be in 2022 for Nebraska baseball. Can you rise to the occasion, rise to the challenge, and deliver and throw strikes and not hit batters and not walk people and not just give up free passes? That's murder on your team. And it's tough defensively because guys are earning free passes, and then there's extra stress defensively. You got a newcomer at second base that had some tough times there, and he'll reassess and regroup, but it doesn't get any easier. I think Will Bolt, though, is just a really smart scheduler. Nebraska could have found somebody easier and weaker to open up with than Sam Houston. You have connections into the program with Sam Houston's coaching staff, head man for sure, teammate of Will's. And it would have been real easy to start off with some cupcakes. And I know Sam Houston's not knocking on Omaha's door, but from a familiarity standpoint, there's kind of knowing your enemy. Well, Sam Houston's kids and for sure coaching staff knew Will and what this team was about. So not the easiest. And then you jump right into TCU with a 1-3 start. But that's okay. The talking, it's not okay, but it's not the end of the world, I guess is the better way to put it. Nebraska will be a much better baseball team at the end of the season versus the beginning of the season. That's always been a constant, and I think that's one thing that you can bet your money on with Will Bolt. His teams will get better. They'll figure it out, Elijah, on the mound, and they'll figure out the right approach with batting order and for sure just getting contact, not windmailing at the dish and helping out the opposing pitching staff.
Yeah, and that was the main problem. I mean, you can talk about the pitching all you want, but realistically, Nebraska had allowed enough runs that their offense could have put them in a chance to win all those games still. I mean, there was nothing where there was I can't expect Nebraska to put up 6 runs. Like it's a college baseball game. I think you should expect
6-run innings happen.
Yeah, you should expect your offense can put up at least 4 runs a game. Mm-hmm. So the offense was the bigger problem to me than the pitching. The pitching didn't have the best weekend, obviously, but I think they at least gave the offense a chance to go out and compete. And it was the offense with impatient at bats, trying to swing for the fences a little bit too much. It just didn't look like the guys were ready to go up in battle like experienced hitters do. And that was the difference between last year's team and the offense in this year's. A lot of young guys. It just looked like guys trying to do too much on opening weekend, trying to make a highlight.
Totally agree with you. I don't know that they were trying to get on SportsCenter a la the home run ball at Buck Belzer that went through the window on a Friday night, but I think they were absolutely pressing and too anxious to hit one out. Husker basketball, the women do their job yesterday afternoon, 93-70 over Minnesota. The story, though, this weekend was the absence and suspension of Chuck Love on the bench. That came down Saturday from Nebraska. Ashley Scoggin removed from the basketball team as well. And the basketball team has been a great story. They have been your winter bright spot, waiting for baseball, post-volleyball. As a Nebraska fan, you've endured football season, and you've gone beyond enduring. You have suffered with men's basketball. The Husker women are for real. They play together. They're versatile. They're tough. They're gritty. They're smart. They play for one another. And this story is not done yet. They have phenomenal on-court performance. They've risen to the occasion to get some monster home court wins. They are very much alive for a nice seed in the NCAA tournament, sitting at 20 wins. 22 is the number to get them in. The last thing I think I saw yesterday was a projected 7 seed, just right behind Iowa. And now you have the mental toughness that you've shown on court needs to transition into a brick wall off court, because who knows what the timeline is going to be for an announcement on Chuck Love's future other than suspended with pay where we currently sit. What's going to happen with Ashley Scoggin and her dismissal? Now, she's not been abandoned by the university. She's still on scholarship. She can still graduate.
And we don't know it was necessarily a dismissal. It could have been her stepping away of her own accord. All we really know is she's not on the team anymore.
Better way to put it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And are these two related? Is this removal of Scoggin and Chuck Love connected? That's the question, and it's turned into off-court drama. And we'll see how it plays out. You had Coach Amy Williams not really able to get into much because it is a personnel matter with Chuck Love, and you'll see where the team goes from here. I don't think they'll cave. I don't think they will fold. I don't think they'll scuffle, but it's going to be the center of attention. And this is something that a lot of rumors and speculation are flying out there. There's nothing really concrete to comment on my end. I have done my phone calls and texting, and I have a pretty good idea, but that it's just an idea. It's not fact with what is going on. We know this. Scoggin not on the team anymore, and Chuck Love on a paid suspension. That's where we're at with it. Can Nebraska withstand both of those losses on court? When you look at three-point shooting from Ashley and you look at what Chuck does an assistant, and then just the mental issue with the distraction side. More on this and the weekend that was. Steve Marik coming up with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back in, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. A busy weekend for Steve Marik. He's got the radar up for some spring football a week from today. Does a great job covering Husker women's basketball and Nebraska baseball. Steve, will start there. Scale of 1 to 10, level of shock that Nebraska came home from Texas 1-3.
First of all, Chris, thanks for having me on. And that's a good question. I'd have to go with a 3, right? Like I guess level of 1 to 10 shock. Let's go with a 7. A 7. Now that I'm thinking about it correctly, I expected them to get more than one win out of Sam Houston for sure. Sam Houston, they're a really good program. Nothing to turn your nose at, but yeah, just the level of hype coming in, just from what Will Bolt had talked about prior to the season, about how good he felt about the pitching staff, how deep it was, and what this kind of offense was going to look like this season with maybe some more power and less small ball. Yeah, pretty shocking. I put that as maybe a 7 that they only came out of there with one win.
It's an early season, but you have TCU, nationally ranked TCU looming. Long Beach State is also on the horizon, and Will Bolt said it best, we got to get better now. Did so in his post game. And, you know, you look, and it just was a tough weekend all around. First and foremost, when we talk pitching, it's real easy to want to plug and play, but the reality is you just can't do it based on what you lost. And 17 runs, 17 hits, and 10 1/3 innings for the Nebraska starting pitching. Things were compounded by errors in the field, and then the offense just not good. I mean, 8 unearned runs back to the defense, but 43 strikeouts and just 10 walks. That's just a tough ratio. I know you want to go more power, so it's risk-reward, but power can also mean extra base hits, contact, right? And I don't know. I just thought they'd be a little bit better, specifically defensively, with the work they had in the outdoors portion of leading up to the season.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're exactly right. It's a 56 game regular season schedule, so there's plenty of time to fix some things. But yeah, when you have when you come out of that 4-game series with more strikeouts than hits, that's pretty bad. And I just don't think anybody really expected it to be that poor of a showing down there in Texas. But the starting pitching was really rough for the most part with Kyle Perry. I think we all think Kyle Perry is a better pitcher than what he showed.
Mm-hmm.
So is Shea Shannon, and they'll have a lot of time to work out some kinks. And the relief pitching, I thought for the most part did okay. If they could just get a good start with those starters, things could be different. But yeah, you're absolutely right with the errors too. Just uncharacteristic from some of those guys as well. And I know they started a freshman from Canada and Jackson Core at second, and he had kind of a rough first 2 games there. But it'll be interesting to see with this next series, especially with TCU, a top 25 TCU club over there. So it's a lot of game, a lot of season left to be played, and I think that they're going to obviously get better with as the season goes on. But rough first series for Will Bolton boys.
Bolton, the crew aren't going to allow these guys to panic through just 4 games, but do they analyze and then shift the approach a little bit this soon? Do they? And to me, I mean, it was kind of a trial, I guess is the best way to put it. Let's put some guys out there on the mound and see how they perform and then reassess. I mean, do you think they'll look at it that way this week going into TCU?
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make. I think this is an early season lineup, and I think things could definitely be shaken up and moved around. And just once guys get some more innings under their belt, I think there's definitely options to kind of rework and maybe try some relief arms over there. Just try to, I guess, fix some things and try to get a better kind of just outing just in the starting pitching rotation.
Yeah, and Steve, I don't think there's any long-term worry based off of one weekend. I mean, it happens. Sometimes teams get you getting a series to get into the season a little bit. We'll see how this team looks, say, 2 weeks from now. But we do have one area of long-term concern. That's pitcher Jake Buns. He came in to close the game, second game of the doubleheader on Saturday. Only threw a couple of pitches before leaving, holding his elbow. Do we have any update on him, or do we know when there will be an update on his injury status?
I do not. We are scheduled to talk with Will Bolt on Wednesday, this Wednesday. Okay. So I assume that he's going to have a update on Buns right then. But, man, that's just a tough situation. When I was listening to the radio call of that game, just to hear it go down is just disappointment altogether. Just after knowing what he's been through with his previous injury history, it's just a tough stretch for Jake. So it's one less arm to kind of work with the rotation and the kind of closing spot that Will Bolt is kind of finding himself searching for somebody with that closing mentality. So I assume that we're going to get more of a clear picture on Wednesday with Coach Bolt.
One bright spot, at least early on, Luke Jensen, 7 for 11, really did well at the plate. That was a nice kind of debut for him. What do you know about Luke a little bit, and his offensive prowess specifically moving forward?
Yeah, freshman from Elkhorn South. Luke really, like you said, 7-11 out of plate. He had a really good outing just from an overall poor performance out of plate from really a lot of other people that you kind of expected more out of. I thought Kobe Gomez did pretty well at the plate as well, 6 of 14, I think, with 3 doubles and 3 RBIs in that series. So, with Luke, I think he just kind of offers – I didn't really expect it, I guess, that 7-11 performance at the plate with Luke. It's kind of tough to know how these freshmen kind of come in and translate to Division I baseball right away from the high school ranks. But, Luke, after one series, definitely showed that he's working with some good stuff there.
Let's switch gears, talk Husker basketball. The women able to put a great performance together yesterday, a 20th win, an ability to win by double digits, pretty much blowing out the Gophers. They head to the road Tuesday against Wisconsin. This team has been a great story all year, and it's always been about their on-court performance, their big wins. You think of Michigan, you think of the Indiana win. They're right in the thick of a tourney push, and they should be in, but a couple more probably makes it official unofficially. Now, the news this weekend that was dominant, though, wasn't what happened Sunday, but more so the news and the statement from Saturday. Suspension for associate head coach Chuck Love, removal of Ashley Scoggin from the roster. What was the mood yesterday? What was the energy, I guess is the better way to put it, yesterday during the game and then post-game with Coach Williams? How did you kind of process all of what was going on through her sit-down post-game?
Yeah, with everything that kind of went down on Saturday, I was really kind of wondering how the team would respond with all of that, kind of off-the-court distraction when they had to play a winnable game, I guess, against Minnesota, and they came out and did not show, at least to me, any really signs of distraction at all. I mean, Allison Winder came in and started in place of Ashley Scoggin and did extremely well. She had a career-high 23 points and very efficient on the night. I think she was 8 of 10 and didn't have a turnover. So, I mean, she's going to start getting more minutes, and yeah, just the day was a pretty good one, actually, because the PBA was absolutely packed. There was over 650,000 or 6,500 people there, and it was a really, really well-received game. It was loud. The crowd was into it. A lot of people there. Then after the game, Amy said what she said, and she couldn't really comment on a whole lot, but just said that the team was, really leaning on each other, and I think it kind of brought the team together even more, and maybe just bring in the fact that they still have a lot of goals in front of them, and they're going to come together now and try to just look forward and not back, and that's pretty much what the postgame consisted of.
Steve Marik's with us. HailVarsity.com and magazine covers Husker baseball for Hail Varsity, the Nebraska women's basketball program. We'll get to some spring football in a moment. Steve, as you've covered this team this year, give me some of the core leaders on that team, some of the players that can help weather whatever this storm ends up being.
Well, I thought it was pretty notable that when head coach Amy Williams went up to the post-game press conference table, she was right on her left and right. There was Sam Hybe and Izzy Bourne, and I think those two are a couple of veteran leaders who have been here and done that at Nebraska, and they're two tough-minded players. And, Sam, I think Sam would tell you that she needs to shoot the ball better and have better percentages from before, but when it's in the fourth quarter, I kind of feel good with her having the ball in her hands. She's a really tough guard, and Izzy Bourne, the last 5 or 6 games, she has been shooting it pretty well. I think it's the last 5 games she has at least one late three-pointer, and that's a 6'2" forward stretching the floor free on offense. And yeah, it's just I think those two are really gonna. It's good to have those two on the team and kind of know what it means to be a Husker, and I guess just kind of take this adversity and run with it. And I think, it's just Sam Hybe and Izzy Bourne would be those two players.
Steve, I wanted to go back to the two departures, and what impact will that have on Nebraska not having Chuck on the bench? B, what impact will that have without Scoggin launching from 3? I mean, let's talk about the void on the court.
Like we talked about let's just stick with Chuck first. I know he did a lot of work with the post development, and I know Amy Williams is a great coach. She still has a great staff left on that bench, and I think it hurts obviously, but I think they still have strong coaching left there on the bench. And as for the loss of Scoggin, she's a 40% 3-point shooter in conference, which was the best by far. I know Alexis Markowski has been shooting it pretty well from out there, but recently I think she's won one of her last 10. But yeah, the loss of Scoggin hurts with the perimeter shooting, and it's one thing to see, with Allison Widener stepping in. I know she was 3 of 3 from 3 yesterday against Minnesota. So we'll see if that kind of keeps up. She had talked about earlier in the season how her 3-point shot was kind of a work in progress, I guess you would say. And then, it's just other areas of the game with Scoggin. She was primarily a big ball handler. But yeah, the loss of that 3-point shooting is really going to hurt. But I think there's some people that are going to have to step up, and that's exactly what Andy Williams said following the Minnesota game.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, get everything we produce: 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Steve Marik's with us, hailvarsity.com and magazine. Spring football a week from today, it gets rocking. Just imperative spring for Nebraska to get a lot of work done and opportunity, specifically on the offensive line with some guys that are going to be out, so a chance for some guys to entrench themselves at a tackle spot, or heck, maybe even two, depending on how Big Teddy comes back with his injury. The interior is going to be different, potentially, with no more Juergens there, and, of course, a new player behind center at quarterback, potentially, when you look at the quarterback room. So, offensive line's kind of been our focus. I know you've been dialed into it. What do you believe, or what are some prognostications, I guess, with the spring on that O-line? Who are some guys you think can make a move or kind of enhance their playing time here with a good showing in spring?
Yeah, the spring is going to be interesting for the offensive line just because, like you said, the injuries that we already know of, two players that will not be participating in Teddy Prohaska and then Turner Corcoran. Those are two probable starters that you'd like to think would start next season. But, yeah, with those two out, that opens the door for other people at a tackle position, and maybe look at I know Hunter Anthony is going to get a good look. Also throw in Henry Letusky at one of the guards. I think he's a guy that kind of spent last year as a developmental year. Highly touted guy coming out of high school, a big dude at 6'6", 330. I think Henry Letusky is going to have a lot of options, I guess, and a lot of momentum coming into the season as kind of the new guy on the block that's going to, kind of try to earn some valuable reps this spring at guard maybe. And then also can't forget about Ethan Piper and Trent Hickson. Those two have they've had starting experience and then kind of lost that starting experience in their careers. But it's a new year. Everybody's got a clean slate. Donovan Raiola has some fresh eyes on everybody, and I think Ethan Piper, and maybe just not count out Ethan Piper and Trent Hickson yet as a couple of guys who could come in and, like I said, they have past experience, and maybe they could come in and get some good reps and learn something and keep working hard under a new coach in Donovan Raiola.
Well, that center spot, right? You look at Hickson, you look at Piper, two names to think about for the center spot. Of course, I'm interested to see Benhart, his bounce back. He's played a lot of football, high-profile recruit, has a lot of the tools. I mean, when you look at the measurables, I mean, there's all sorts of skill set with him. I feel like with both the tackles, it's not ability for them. They've just got to get more refined. They've all played at a young age, and a lot of it's got to be confidence. I mean, that's such a key part. Got to build the confidence, and you do that through doing. And I mean, they faced a slew of NFL dudes off the edge every Saturday, it felt like. Every week it was some guy that you're seeing on a Kuiper or McShay draft board for edge rusher. So, no, I think the confidence is key. And from a philosophy, we've heard downhill for several years, but I think under Raiola, maybe it does get downhill with the run game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a mystery of what his teaching style and coaching style is, just because he hasn't talked about it much. But that's just kind of his personality and how he goes about it. And you're absolutely right with. Totally forgot to mention Bryce Benhart at tackle. He was kind of thrown into the fire as a young guy, just like Turner Corcoran was, and especially in the Big Ten, there's not a lot of people who can play that position, be an offensive lineman in the Big Ten successfully when you're just kind of thrown into it in your first and second year of college. It's just a man's game in the trenches down there in the Big Ten, and the older guys usually are the ones that are good at it, but. Benhart and Corcoran are kind of thrown in there and kind of live with the mistakes that they've made, and there's been a lot of mistakes, especially last year. But with a new coach in Donovan coming in, it's going to be really interesting to see who he sticks where, and I guess with the two injuries that we talked about with Turner Corcoran and Tenny Prohaska going out, it's just going to be interesting to see who goes where and throw in the Northern Colorado transfer, Kevin Williams Jr. as well.
Steve, have a good week. We'll get caught up soon. Thanks for the time.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris.
Steve Marik, HailVarsity.com and magazine all over this weekend, and good insight for him on spring football. Sam Sledge, another commit for Nebraska, offensive lineman out of Creighton Prep 2023, and pretty cool story here. Good write-up by Greg Smith, a recruiting insider from Hail Varsity. We'll run down Greg this week. But Nebraska offered Sledge in January after Junior Day, and it went down after Raiola saw Sledge do a couple of drills, and immediately Raiola turned to Sledge and his family and says, let's go to my office. And that's when the offer came, and Sledge didn't waste or wait too long about picking Nebraska. And the really cool thing here about Sam Sledge is just a little bit of a throwback mentality. Really talented ball player at Prep. Obviously, guard or center is his projection in Lincoln. But he's a bit of a trio right now with more names to go after for 2023 and 2024 for local area talent. Specifically, you have Malachi Coleman, obviously, that's out there. Maverick Noonan, really talented ball player as well. But in the boat right now is Brahmer, Brahmer, the tight end, Gatula from Southeast, and, of course, Sledge now. So 2 linemen and tight end, Elijah, for Nebraska. Bob Sledge, of course, all Big 8 performer in the 80s. We'll talk to Coach McBride about Papa Sledge, but aptly named for an offensive lineman, but really good mentality. And Prep, one of those power programs, obviously, in the Metro historically and lately. So just kind of that fit of physical dominance on the offensive line. We'll get into some O-line thoughts, too, with Charlie here in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, and what immediately just jumps off the tape, actually, with Sam Sledge is, first things first, incredibly fleet of foot for his size. I think he comes in about 6'5", 280, and really, really quick feet. For someone of that size, gets moving, especially pulling around, plays guard and tackle. But the other thing that really stands out, he's got a knack for finishing blocks. Some linemen have it, some don't. He clearly has it. If he's going up against anybody and they start moving backwards, they're going to end up flat on their back. And that just means you as a lineman have a mean streak combined with the fact he got some fleet feet. I like what I see from him.
Good combo. Where would you rank your anger level? Were you an angry O-lineman, or were you just a gentle giant?
I was a get under the other skin's guy type of lineman.
So you really just wanted to...
I was an antagonizer. I wasn't a mean streak guy, but I was an antagonizing officer.
So you'd hit him just right as the whistle was echoing?
Yes.
You were that guy.
I was that guy. If they end up on the ground, you push yourself up off of them instead of off the ground.
Right.
Just the little things.
You roll off of them.
Yeah. I just like getting other guys' skins.
The old husky-sized Elijah. I loved it. We'll wind down hour 1 next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, 10 minutes away, Mr. Blackshirt Charlie McBride. We'll get Coach McBride's take on when and if there was any hijinks at midfield after a beatdown during his career. Interested in that. I hope he got some of our nearly 70-degree weather yesterday. It was repeated quite a bit yesterday, but it's still hilarious. When it comes to Juwan Howard and the punch or the slap. And this was the first person to tweet it out. So I will give credit to premium content on Twitter. If Juwan Howard was going to punch anyone over a timeout, it should have been Chris Webber.
That's good stuff.
That's so good. And it's still not too soon 30 years later.
I was sitting in the KO4 studio watching the end of that game. I guess that would have been the newsroom, sitting over in the newsroom doing some Sunday morning news.
Glad you were working.
Sunday afternoon news, I guess. Came in a little late. It was a long Saturday night. But anyway, I'm sitting in there watching the end of that game, working, quote unquote. And that was like the most wild thing because I was like going to check and see what the final score was. And I turned around and the handshake line is just starting. And like you see them yelling at each other, I go, oh, that's getting interesting. So I felt like I was actually, for being a guy who misses a lot of the top college basketball games, I feel like I saw the moment of the season.
Well, let's hope that's not it. But, I mean, you have footage last year where Michigan rolled Wisconsin by 12, and they're hugging. They're fist-pounding. So, clearly, that was probably the best shot for Michigan to move off the last 4-in or 11-seed line as they were just Saturday afternoon ahead of the Kentucky game. CBS did their pre-mock selection show, and Michigan's right there edging out Rutgers and Iowa. And the reason Michigan wasn't in a play-in is because they won Thursday at Iowa. But then they go get manhandled by a good Wisconsin team. I think Wisconsin's either a 3 or a 4 seed. So I think he was ticked at the frustration. They got worked. He called a timeout, by the way, with 55 seconds remaining. Howard called a timeout with 55 seconds remaining, and they're down 18.
And when guard called the timeout, it's because they're about to get a 5-second inbounds call and with all your backups out there.
Well, Howard's still pressing.
Yeah.
He's still pressing. He's pressing backups with his starters.
And if you're going to do that, I think you take it. I agree with guard where you're taking that as a learning opportunity for your guys.
Yes, no, absolutely.
You couldn't get the inbounds pass in, so you're going to quickly take 30 seconds to go talk with the guy, say, this is what happened, this is how we beat it. You take it as a learning opportunity. Those guys are going to be your starters.
That's what it was. And that's how Wisconsin builds, absolutely. We'll have comments here. Adam Rittenberg reporting a statement should be out from the Big Ten here shortly. I didn't know the Big Ten was working on a federal holiday, but there needs to be some resolution here. Reminder about buckling up, game preparation, and repetition predicts success and winning. Drivers and vehicle passengers who always use their seatbelt will increase their survival chances if a crash should happen. Remember, always buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Just through hour one, and Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt, with us to kick off hour two. Michigan insider Gregg Henson, great column, and his take on Howard. That's on the way at 5:20 with Hail Varsity. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
To Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Great to be with you on a Monday. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie on Hail Varsity. Coach, it is President's Day. Who's your all-time favorite president?
Really? I'll tell you, it's kind of funny because I guess I shouldn't. My favorite one is probably one that I kind of knew the most of when I was a young person, and that's Truman.
Okay.
So, and he was born on May 8th, and that's the same day as my brother.
Okay.
One of my brothers. So it's kind of something we kid him with every day. We always call him up and talk to him as this is President Truman's birthday, and we want to wish you a happy birthday.
That's pretty good. So Truman's good.
Charlie, have you ever gotten the chance though to swing over to Kansas City and see the Harry Truman Presidential Library?
Yes,
it's a good museum. I've been there twice now.
Yeah, I think I've been there. It's been a while. I've been there once for almost 3/4 of a day. I remember we stayed long. It was read about everything on the wall, and the other one was a short day. I went with some people and just went in and looked around real quick, and that was it. But it's a great place.
So you've gotten to meet 3 presidents, correct? Well, you've been to the White House 3 times for national championships, right?
Well, I think one time we didn't go in '95. There was something, I don't know, we didn't because we were there the year before or something, so they gave us some excuse, and I'm not too sure we went then.
Okay. So you went in '94 and then in '97, right?
Yeah.
Well, how was the lunch? Good?
No, it was. I don't know, but somebody said it was in line. One of the players said they were talking to the president, and he said, I can't remember which one. He said, "You don't happen to have a 6-pack, do you?"
So
one time, of course, in '97 we went when we was both teams were there, Michigan and us. Were there, so it was a big, pretty lot of people there and everything. But it was a good mixture of people. I mean, it was a fun time.
Well, why didn't you guys just play for the title, the outright title on the White House lawn?
We probably could have, but I don't know. There wasn't much talk about that kind of thing. There wasn't. It was pretty cordial with everybody, and I knew a lot of the coaches, so they probably knew better. Nobody gave anybody any gas, throw any gas on the fire,
Charlie McBride's with us. Go ahead.
When you're in Michigan, they won. So I just keep my mouth shut.
Well, let's transition to Michigan. Did you see the post-game handshake between Juwan Howard and Greg Gard basketball?
I did not. I did not see that.
You've
but
heard about it.
Yeah. I heard Juwan had slapped him or something, I guess.
Yeah, he reached over, and it was kind of an open-handed swipe punch, really, at an assistant. And we're kind of waiting on word here with what the Big Ten's deciding. I know you knew Coach Hayes pretty well, correct? Woody Hayes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Woody's swan song was what happened against Clemson with that punch, right?
Well, he lost.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's kind of funny because after, I guess it was a year or so after that was over, and he still was around the university a lot. Mm-hmm. And, I think, from that point on, the thing was over with as far as, the people of the university were just blew it off. I mean,
mm-hmm.
They didn't really, but it was not ever talked about, other than, party talk maybe, but that was over with and everything like that. So there wasn't a whole big blow up, and he went out gracefully.
Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, want to get your thoughts. Were there any post-game moments that were tense or, I don't want to say rude, but were just tough to deal with, where you're meeting at midfield, maybe you guys crushed somebody and they couldn't take it? Anything jog your memory?
No, we never had any of that kind of stuff. I know, Notre Dame was famous for it, and, it seemed like, of course, Notre Dame and Miami were professionals. I mean, they could have had about 50 fights and, paid a lot for each one of them. But, we never had anything like that. I think that what post-game thing I did have was probably my last game when I retired. It was supposed to be a QT deal, quiet. And Mike Brown went down and said something about they were happy that we won because it was Coach McBride's last game, and everybody goes, what? Mm-hmm. Well, what happened was everybody had apparently all the press had left. And so finally somebody came up and got me to go down there, and there was one station, I don't know who it was, or somebody in Omaha was still there. And so they picked up on it a little bit. And I mean, I talked about it, and I never did have an official retirement other than that, when I left. So, it was in the paper, of course, after that. But in reality, the university didn't. It was kind of funny. I don't know what there was. They didn't accept anything until the next year, until the 19th of January. And I think part of it was so that they could. I don't know whether it was worked out with Tom or whatever it was, so that they actually paid me for the rest, all the way up to the end of that fiscal year. So it was kind of a good deal for me. I mean, but that was about it. Afterwards, I've had some disappointing things. We played. I think it was the Miami game. It was the '94 national championship game, and I was in the locker room before the game, and one of our managers came up and said, one of the officials wants to talk to you. And that probably isn't a great thing to talk about, but I went out there thinking, oh man, what did I do now? And he was a guy from up in Michigan, and one of my really good friends who I coached with at Wisconsin, who actually played at Michigan, Stan Kemp, had ALS. He wanted me to know, and said that he said for him to say, he was telling me good wishes from him, that it wasn't long before. I think he passed in about 3 days after that. But so it didn't make for an exciting beginning. Of course, we forgot about it quick until after the game. But that was something that that came up. Other than that, after the game, I think the thing, that I enjoyed the most probably about coaching was just being around the players and seeing how happy they were when we won games like that. And it was every game, when you played well and you won, it was a great feeling to see them happy for all the work that they put in, and realize what it meant to them.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. On Monday with Charlie. Coach, spring football gets underway a week from today. A lot to do. New faces, new terminology. And you got to kind of reload on the defensive side. So many of and it's going to be a bit of a new look defense. Some familiar names that are going to be back, but bigger potential roles for some guys. And my big question is this: what does Nebraska need to get done this spring? In your expertise. What can they get done, and what has to get done so it's summer and then fall and you're off and running?
Yeah, well, the thing I think actually on both sides of the ball, they're going to have some changes in terminology on both sides. I think they're going to probably do some new things on defense, and they may play a little more even front than they have played in the past. And that may loosen up some of those outside guys to really put a little more pressure on the quarterback than they've had. Maybe a little bit similar to what we did, but I'm sure it's going to be something else. I don't know if it's going to be a 4-3, but I think they'll do some of those things. And in my mind, I think that, they need to get a pressure package and don't be too conservative and, put the hurt on them once in a while. And, and offensively, again, it's going to be finding who's where and what. And that's the hard thing. And that, of course, being in the portal situation, it's a hard thing because, here you have, at least on the offensive line, you have a guy, where you're going to play him. You got to figure that out in a few days, and maybe you're guessing wrong. And, in the middle of the year, say, we should have played him here or move him over there, and then you got another, learning session, and those are the things that are hard. If you can place the guys, where they're really going to be, then that helps. But I think, and the terminology will be a little bit different, but I assume, and there'll be a lot of young guys that it won't be so hard on because they'll be really learning for the first time. Mm-hmm. And the same thing defensively, especially in the secondary.
Coach, I want to ask you about a topic we explored last week. And with Nebraska, really with a young secondary, a lot of new guys going to have to step up in that secondary room this year. Do you think that Nebraska will be behind the eight ball if they don't have some sort of pass rusher step up from that front four? We saw last season Nebraska try to develop pressure with scheme and with packages, but do they need one of those guys to step up and get after the quarterback?
Well, if you think about the games, sometimes we've had some, some kind of long plays taking a lot of time off the clock, and pressure can change that pretty quick. And a lot of forced third downs, a lot of missed balls thrown on third down, and stuff like that. And I think it takes a little bit of, courage to call some of that stuff sometimes, but. If you have a good feeling about what you're doing, I never had any problem calling it. I'd do it every play, if I thought it was smart. But, because I love seeing pressure put on them, and I love seeing the guys really turn it loose. And, I used to always tell them, when you blitz, I just want to see the skin coming off your eyeballs. That's all.
That's a painting. That's a painting, man. That's a picture. You're telling him to get going, Coach.
That's right.
Go ahead.
No, that's kind of some of the stuff I think that they'll have to do. But I think they're going to have to find positions exactly. I mean, you have some guys that are coming in here that are corners that may be safeties and vice versa. And when you get them here, it's what you're playing back there where they fit the best.
Mm-hmm. Coach, couple of minutes here. Nebraska got a commit yesterday from Sam Sledge, really talented offensive lineman from Creighton Prep. His dad, Bob Sledge, an All-Big 8 performer. Do you remember Bob at all?
Oh, yeah, sure do. I mean, you talk about if he's anything as tough as his dad was, then that's a start. I mean, he's, that, and when you see a kid commit like that, I don't care where it is, and commit like that, especially in the state, that means that's loyalty. That's something that started before he was at Nebraska, and I'm sure his dad had a lot to do with it, but I think that, a lot of times you have guys, last year one went to Iowa, and so, he didn't have that kind of loyalty to the state. He just, he went somewhere else. And, that's what I just kind of look at those things when kids commit. They don't fool around. They're just, they just want to be here. And that's really, really important. And that makes for good leaders.
Well, they've done a nice job of corralling 3 in-state kids for 2023, and there's a couple more out there. One with the last name of Noonan. You might recognize that name.
Yep, I do. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think, a lot of times it's why would you, I lost a really good player that I thought up until the last day in Detroit, and he wasn't even interested in Michigan, and all of a sudden they were giving him a scholarship, so they get out and give him one and sent a bunch of guys down there from Detroit, and he ended up going there. And I felt like when he said he was going to do that, I felt kind of, I didn't feel like I'd feel if he went to Notre Dame or went to Indiana or Purdue or somewhere else around there. But he was going to his state school. He was going to where maybe he should have gone in the first place if they did it right. Sure. And they didn't. And then he went on to be an All-American linebacker at Michigan, and right now I think he's the linebacker coach down at the Bucks down in Tampa Bay.
That was a good name. Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, enjoy this week, and we'll talk next week. How's that sound?
Okay, if we don't get any snow, it was nice today.
I thought it would be.
Huh?
I said I thought it might be. Coach, thanks for the time.
Okay, thanks for having me. Talk to you later. Bye now.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity. And I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Hail Varsity Radio presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Excited to talk with our Michigan insider, Gregg Henson, with us at Gregg Henson on Twitter. Great column from Gregg, GreggHenson.com on Juwan Howard. We don't have him?
Don't have Gregg.
We just texted one another. We'll get that figured out, I guess. That's interesting.
In the meantime, want to run the TV broadcast from the Juwan Howard?
Let's do that.
Just right now?
Yeah, just fire it up. This is what we're going to be talking to Gregg about.
Interesting finish here, 77. Oh, see, and they're going at it. Oh, yeah. Howard and Guard are not happy right now as the two of them continue to have words. We told you Juwan Howard was not happy about that timeout. And Juwan Howard just threw a right hand. And now we got a scrum. We have a scrum in Madison. Players are pushing and shoving. This is an ugly scene. This is an ugly scene.
Oh, my God.
Trying to get separated, and there's no doubt it all stems from the timeout by Greg Gard. Now, that's not an excuse for this, but that is what angered Juwan Howard, and it spilled over into this.
It spilled over. We're still awaiting word from the Big Ten. We're going to effort our Michigan insider. And listen, I'm sorry, but there was a punch thrown, open palm or not, that's fireable. And it's pettiness on Howard's part to, lose it, like he did. And for him to act that way is clearly unacceptable. And I don't think he'll lose his job. Fine, yeah. Suspension, yeah. Termination, no. We now bring in our Michigan's insider, Gregg Henson, at Gregg Henson on Twitter, GreggHenson.com. Gregg's column right on the money with with Juwan Howard. Gregg, good to talk with you again, brother. Thanks for the time. And I just introduced you like 3 minutes ago. I thought you were on the line. I whiffed at that. But what's your thought here, man?
What do you mean unacceptable? What was wrong with that? Everything was perfect.
Well, if you're going to like swing, first and foremost, doesn't need to be a closed fist. I mean, come on.
Right. Oh, Juwan Howard, I said this today, is 100% wrong in this. Nobody else has any culpability. I don't want to hear about instigating. I don't want to hear about anything, the timeout. None of that matters when a coach swings at another coach. And Juwan Howard, Chris, is not stupid. He's not angry. He was frustrated, and he has a history of being a hothead. And as I said earlier in my column, he is a victim of the I need my respect movement in sports, and you see it all the time. Even teams that are favored to win run around saying no one believed in us. I need my respect. He disrespected me. What Greg Gard did is what 9 or 10 of us out of 10 of us would have done. If somebody was clearly mad at you, you would put up your hands and say, hey, talk to me for a minute. Don't run away mad. And that's what he tried to do. Juwan acted like an immature child.
So you have covered Michigan for a lot of years. You saw their Fab Five team for sure. You've seen the ups and downs of Michigan basketball. And Juwan's a favorite son, man, with those Fab Five teams. And, of course, replacing Beeline, who had Michigan on the doorstep of a couple of national championships. So is the job too big for him in this moment? And how have you seen him mature overall? Is this a blip or is this par for the course?
I honestly think it's a blip. I know he's had flare-ups before, but Juwan Howard is a well-rounded individual, came from a tough background and made it. And I don't care how you slice it, Chris. He's successful. He's an achiever. He's smart. He made a big mistake. I mean, obviously, going forward, there has to be zero tolerance. But I wouldn't expect Juwan Howard to have done this once, let alone to ever do it again. And I wish he would have apologized and said, hey, I made a mistake, because then it's over. But now it drags on because he didn't bother to say, I'm sorry. And you know how that is. People are forgiving. They'll say, okay, guy lost his head. His team was getting their butt kicked. I don't think the job is too big. I think he's got people forget he lost 2 NBA caliber wings last year, and a couple of other good quality players. So to act like he, is going to just continue on this year with no bump in the road, I don't think that's realistic. You're seeing the same issues with Penny Hardaway at Memphis. Great recruiting class, and they're struggling too. So. Freshmen are freshmen. You know that. You've seen a million of them.
Gregg Henson with us, Michigan Insider, Hail Varsity Radio, at Gregg Henson on Twitter. What do you think happens next?
I think he'll get suspended for the rest of the Big Ten season, and I think he'll get a stern warning and a fine. He'll issue an apology, and this will blow over. I think that we have a tremendous ability in sports, particularly on social media, to overreact. I think the Big Ten's probably sorting it out now. I would have liked to have seen Michigan come out today and say, we don't care what the Big Ten says of the NCAA. We're going to suspend him for the last 5 games of the regular season. I think it sends a clear message that it can't happen again, and preemptively suspend Juwan. I mean, I don't want to see him suspended, but I think the bigger issue is going to be the players that get suspended, Diabate, and who was the other? Terrence Williams, who was the 6th man. So overall, Chris, this blows over. It always does, but it'll always be a mark on Juwan. And then the next time this happens, what do? They'll say, oh, the last time this happened, it was Juwan Howard who actually threw a punch. Mm-hmm. So you know how that goes. All the Bobby Knight clips are out right now of him throwing the chair. And, who was it, Chaney at Temple?
Chaney and Calipari.
Calipari, right. And they wanted to fight, and they drag these things out whenever. So the next time it happens, it'll get dragged out, and it's always going to be part of who Juwan is. But I mean, certainly it's fixable and recoverable. And if he keeps his team together, they'll have a shot to get into the tournament if he can keep them together. But next year they'll be good enough, to make the tournament.
Gregg, I want to get your take on. I mean, we all know the right hand, the slap, if you will, was unacceptable. But did Juwan have reason to be frustrated with the fact that guard called the timeout late in the game? If you take the incident afterwards completely out of the question, do you think he had a point?
No, he was pressing with starters. Now look, I do believe guard. Who cares if your team turns the ball over? You didn't have to reset the clock. You're up by 14 points or whatever it was. Who cares if you get called for a backcourt violation? I think it was overall, it was two guys. There was some gamesmanship going on. If Juwan wants to press with starters with 15 seconds to go, then you have to expect that they might call a timeout. But again, it goes back to this respect thing. The first thing Juwan said when he approached Greg Gard was, "I'll remember that S." Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, just let it go, man. You got beat. It's okay. It happens. Your team's not that good. But, he felt disrespected. And then when Gard, the whole defense of he put his hand on me is laughably embarrassing, because Gard simply did, like if Elijah, if you or Chris were mad at me and you were walking past me, I might grab you by the ear and go, "Hey man, let's talk about this. Don't go away mad." That's what we all do. So Juwan knows he was wrong and he's going to try to cover, obviously, but I don't know. I feel like people like to clutch their pearls in certain instances, and I just, this is sports. It's okay. They're going to get suspended for it, and it can't happen again.
Gregg Henson's with us, Michigan Insider at Gregg Henson on Twitter. We're talking Michigan and Juwan Howard. And you're right about the gamesmanship. I mean, Juwan called a timeout with 55 seconds left. There's clips on Twitter of them fist-pounding and hugging. And it was last year after Michigan handed a butt kick into Wisconsin. So these guys have been more than cordial to one another. I think it came down to this. Michigan's teetering now on the bubble. You had a great road win at Iowa. You're in at number 11 as an 11 seed versus a play-in right now, and that could have really gave you some breathing room, Gregg, ahead of the finish to the season and then the Big Ten tournament. How'd you pulled off a monster quad one win on the road? Yeah,
but again, you got a team that can't shoot. I don't know if you saw the game. They're not just bad. They're spectacularly bad.
They beat Nebraska by 30, so they've looked pretty good, my friend.
At times they have. You're right. But, I mean, everyone and their brother's beating Nebraska these days.
No, I know.
It's just, it's sad.
It needs to go away.
Yeah, exactly. And, in both sports, actually, which is weird, except, you got a pretty good women's volleyball team. I'll give you that. But, like I always told Schmidt, I remember the days when you guys only cared about football, but now it's women's volleyball, but whatever.
No, the volleyball's always been pretty awesome, to be frank with you. But, yeah, I
love to watch them, to be honest with you. I really enjoy it.
There's been a shift because football's been frustrating. Basketball's been what it's been. The Husker women are good in basketball, and then you have baseball hopes right now, and they got off to a 1-3 start this weekend, but lots of baseball left. Gregg, a final thought here. Does Michigan end up doing enough to get in? Do they rebound from this?
I think so. They're probably going to lose Diabate and Williams for 2 games. I would think. That's my guess. They probably need one more quad one win. I think Michigan State would be that at home to get in. But there's 5 to go. Maybe you go 3-2 down the stretch and then grab 1 or 2 of the Big Ten tournament games, and then you should be okay. Or maybe just 1 because they're going to be way down the pack. But I think they're going to need 3 or 4 wins to get in.
Okay.
And including one good one, including one more quad one. I don't think you can do it on just 2, can you?
I don't think so. I think they got to have an air quote upset or a kind of a wow win. Gregg, awesome to get caught up. Thanks for making time, bud. Appreciate you joining us again.
All right, man. Take care.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcast is part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Stuff from Michigan insider Gregg Henson, Hail Varsity Radio, Monday edition, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Big thanks to Charlie McBride this hour. And then Steve Marik from HailVarsity.com and magazine. We talked quite a bit of Husker baseball as they'll regroup for TCU. And Nebraska winding down their regular season for men's basketball. They're hosting Iowa. I know they're on the road Tuesday night. And Coach Hoiberg has some viral stuff going on, so it's going to be the old line of scrimmage audible system for him, it sounds like. Can join us. Phone's open, 466-377-6800, 825-5865. Gregg laid out what he expects to happen with Michigan. Not just do they go dancing or not, but the Juwan Howard. Maybe I'm too old school, but there was a fight that happened, and it was started, and it was punches. And you see it happen on the football field, right? You see some jabs or some shots with the helmet, which is one thing. The basketball handshake line is completely another. And I just don't agree with the take that, well, let's just get rid of handshake lines. Listen, who didn't love the drive-through version of the good game, good game, good game? And then somebody on your team, if you got beat, at least this is the teams I was on growing up, and granted I didn't play or contribute worth a damn, but someone had always licked their palm if they're shaking hands saying, good game, pre-COVID, good game, good game, good game. There was always that one kid who hated losing that would always cry after a loss.
Or the one that would go, good game, good game, good game, F you, good game, good game.
And then, what did he just say to me? Go ask your folks. Right? So, no, just childish. I think you could. Here's the deal. He's Juwan Howard, first of all. So there's some Michigan royalty there. There's going to be a little wiggle room. B, they don't want to get rid of him. They'll fight for him. I think of anyone else of lesser stature and standing, they probably look at it pretty seriously. But in today's day and age of you say the wrong thing or even do the wrong thing, you're gone, you're done. Juwan Howard, because of who he is and what he's been at that university, is going to get a chance. And listen, I don't know Juwan. I haven't interviewed Juwan. I loved watching him play in the NBA, and I loved watching him play at Michigan, so this isn't personal for me. I'm just saying if it's nameless, faceless, and this happens, who you are and where you're at determines this thing quite a bit.
Well, yeah, if it's a high school basketball coach here in Nebraska who does it after the game and it's on Twitter, yeah, he's removed from that position before morning.
I wish we could go back in the DeLorean and bring a, well, not quite as violent of a Bobby Knight, but bring in a Bobby Knight and drop him in on the Lincoln sidelines like he used to do for Texas Tech with the team that Fred's got. I mean, Fred's squad needs some tough love, quite honestly.
They would bleep that whole TV broadcast. It would just be silent.
They would not you would not see what you've been watching. Is my point. Husker football, spring ball. Let's talk offensive line, Elijah. And I look at Nebraska, and the O-line's going to get a ton of attention. Donnie Raiola in charge and already making a big splash with the Sledge offer and commitment. We touched on that in hour one. But I look at this spring ball setup and the fact that it's going to be a different look, but it's got to be the right look. And Coach McBride was on the money with the fact that you want to be able to place guys correctly. That's so much of it. You're going to have an opportunity for guys who have started before or been backups to be the guy, or for, at least from a rep standpoint, you'd think really get some great work in because of no Prohaska and no Corcoran. So what does that mean? Well, it means for Nuri another spring to keep getting better. He did a really nice job coming in when he was inserted into the starting lineup. But now he's also got to go in and impress while there's a lot of new. Maybe not new what you're being asked to do, but new names for a lot of things. I think Ethan Piper is a kid that will get some direction and could challenge for the center spot along with Hickson. I'm anxious to see those guys kind of grow their confidence, work on their skills, do the job. And Bryce Benhart, remember running into his folks right before the Oklahoma game at our tailgate, and they were excited, but they were also kind of nervous or cautiously optimistic because, Benhart, bless his heart, just had too many mistakes, and it was either mental errors or holdings, and it is a whole different ball game. Nebraska's not wrong in going after Bryce Benhart. Nebraska's not wrong in starting Bryce Benhart, specifically if you look at that size and skill set and who they beat out. You don't get him. He's at Minnesota and he's at Iowa. The only difference is he probably wouldn't have to start at Minnesota or Iowa like he's had to start, or at least he was the best option. He won the job fair and square to start this early in his career. So that is the task at hand for Coach Raiola. Build some confidence, get guys better, and then establish that nasty. And Dave Remington was talking with us last week about just how the O-line, specifically the tackles, man, they look the part. They look great in uniform, but you got to go out and do it. And it's really refining technique, because I think that the tackles are strong. I think they're talented. I think they're quick enough. The guy I'm interested in, and I want you to comment on this, because he's played a lot of spots. He spent time at right tackle. He spent time at right guard. He's played everywhere except center. But Brock Bando's a grizzled vet that is back. He's an IMG kid. He's a Southeast kid, really talented. And he's not your prototypical 6'7" tackle that you're seeing all around the Big Ten, but the kid's big enough and he's talented enough to make a dent.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what a different coaching staff, what eyes they have for him, because it always felt like Greg Austin didn't really know where to put him along the offensive line.
Where's he going to perform?
He'd start at tackle and then move him to guard and then move him back to tackle, and he just kind of seemed like it's a nice role to have.
Settle
a guy that you can really slot in anywhere. It's nice to have along an offensive line, but also it's tough on the player to not know where you need to be focusing on for the upcoming season to be able to get better and improve. So I'm excited to see what a new pair of eyes will do for Brock Bando, to see what a different coach sees in him.
Well, Lutovsky's the buzz name you're going to hear, a young talent, and is he going to? He's really good, but is he ready? And that's also the task, figuring out who's ready. We'll wind down on Monday next.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor. I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Bring it in for the real thing. We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So the word is out on Juwan Howard right before the end of a holiday. 5 games. That's the number. You have Adam Rittenberg reporting. You have Jeff Goodman confirming, and also Dan Wetzel from Yahoo. But Juwan Howard suspended 5 games. That's the remainder of the regular season. Hefty fines are expected after Sunday's altercation. And is that enough? I think if you give him 5 games and it's a big fine, I mean, it can't be the token, well, you criticize the officials, so it's 10G. Or you got assessed a flagrant 2. Or, I mean, this needs to be probably a 6-figure fine.
And if it's that big, do you think we could have Juwan Howard fundraising for this by scheduling an MMA fight with Greg Gard after the season?
See, that is the problem. Is that's going to be a tough sell.
I'd buy the pay-per-view.
I know you would, but Greg Gard, I'm sure, is scrappy and crafty, and is somebody you don't want to mess with after a couple of Crown and Cokes. That said, Juwan's 6'9" and former pro athlete. Juwan's still in great shape. That is stealing money if you put that on the pay-per-view circuit.
Greg Gard he's got to work on the wrestling. Get a couple single leg takedowns, a couple double leg takedowns, hold Juwan down, and I could see him winning.
No, absolutely not. Those odds are horrible.
Oh, I'm sure Juwan would be the heavy Vegas favorite, but I mean, I'd watch it and I'd be thoroughly entertained. I'm sure.
If it's just the Saturday night MMA Elijah, let me order this thing, where it's just inflated gloves and some ground attack, sure. It's a no-brainer. It's Juwan. If there's weaponry, we're talking like steel chair, or a tire iron, then I think, who knows?
Well, you could.
The last place I'd throw a punch on the road is Wisconsin.
You could, though. You could hang a briefcase full of money above the ring, full of whatever the fine would be, and throw a ladder in there, and then that's the weapon that they get.
The ladder?
Yeah, the ladder.
Juwan's 6'9", dude, and he can still, I'm sure he still laces him up a little bit and would go to work that way. We'll spend some time tomorrow. Rick Kaczynski with us, some spring football thoughts from Kaz. Mitch Sherman, if there's any more news here on the Nebraska women's basketball situation, we'll no doubt get Mitch's take on things. And also some spring football. But we'll get the latest from Mitch and company. Podcast, real easy to find, and a slew of options for you with Hail Varsity and Hurrdat. Can subscribe to us, give us a rating, good, bad, ugly. We're all good with the feedback and the critiques. Give us a rating, tell us what you think. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. For Hail Varsity Radio, the I-80 preview with Brandon Vogel, Straight Up Breakdown, Greg Smith, Jacob Padilla, a couple of different hoops podcasts. Of course, Erin Sorensen, her podcast, Schick and Nick, the Nick Baugh podcast. So all of it there with your Hurrdat and Hail Varsity family. Talk to you tomorrow at 4.
A Hurrdat Media Production.